Welcome to 𝐭𝐫 Reads Publishing Podcast.
A place to find in-depth discussions on new authors, book launches, writing techniques, and even great giveaways.
And now, here are your hosts, S.J. Turner and Dorian Keys.
Hi everyone, I'm S.J. Turner, author and owner of 𝐭𝐫 Reads Publishing, and of course joining me today is my fabulous co-host and science fiction author, Dorian Keys. Say hi, Dorian.
Hi everybody, this is Dorian Keys.
So today we have a giveaway to announce. I have 5 double books of Contracted to Mr. Collins. It's the combo, books 1 and 2. Plus, you'll receive a 𝐭𝐫 Reads t-shirt, either gray or white, V-neck or crew neck, and all you have to do is share this podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel and send an email to giveaways@𝐭𝐫ReadsPublishing.com. The link will be provided in the description with the word of the day, which we'll be discussing at the end of the podcast, and that will be Dorian's choice word. Right, Dorian?
Yes, it will.
Perfect. All right. And today we're going to be discussing writing research, right?
Yeah. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. I was doing some research. Today was one of those days that because I have reached almost the ending of the first draft, and I'm on my second edit of my script. Now the script itself is not like I'm not writing volumes like I was writing in the previous weeks. So right now I'm just doing like incremental changes here and there. Sometimes the word count, when I go by word count, it goes down. Sometimes it goes up, but I'm not doing as much writing in volumes. At this point, I really need to fine tune the concepts that I have in the book, and so sometimes I'm stuck in a passage, and now I need to develop the passage. But
so let me ask you this. Sorry. So what is it exactly you're researching? Are you researching about, the settings, the places, towns, cities, planets? What is it exactly that you're researching?
Right. So a few weeks ago, and we spoke about this, I think, yesterday. A few weeks ago, I was researching gravity. How strong gravity is on Earth, and how strong gravity would be on planet Mars, and how strong the gravity would be on the third colony where my main character, where most of the bulk of the story happens.
Okay.
So having said that, now I need to figure out how big the planet itself would be, and would it be viable to be there? And maybe I went too deep down that rabbit hole of research, because I started to kind of imagine, like, how would you bring sunlight that far down the solar system, and how would you terraform a planet that has poor sunlight? And we had this conversation, and you said, yeah, I think you went too far. You don't need this information. But as far as world building, like if I'm going that at this stage, remember how I said that I add this information at the very end?
Yeah. But I think you really just fine-tune it. I said that.
Right. So at this stage, I really need to know even information that, it's probably not going to be in the book, but even that information, it helps me form the story in my head. That way, if I have to make a change, if for some reason there's a lack of oxygen, now I need to know where can people go, or where would it be provided, or something like that. Even if it's not a thing in that it's in the book, but it's in the world. So It makes it easier to walk with a character. So research is pretty big. I don't do research in the beginning. Okay.
You do it as you go, though? Or is it just during edits, like near the end?
Well, I do this near the end. So the story, as I've formed it in my head, it's formed, right? I already have a pretty good idea of what happened in this book and where they were. Because, there was something else that I said earlier that, I said that, I only add dialogues and everything else, and I add most of the world building at the very end. and
Mhm.
I might have been I might have been not fully correct when I said that. The certain scenes when somebody enters a room, like in my head, there would be if you enter the lobby of a building. I mean, in my head, I would have like a really tall lobby, and the voice is echoing and stuff like that. On the script itself, I might just add the lobby was big and his voice was echoing, and I will just leave it at that.
And then you'll
Now that
fill the
would form
rest
the
in later at the end.
right. That would form the picture in my head. So in my head, I do have it, but it's not on script. That's what I meant.
Okay. All right.
So
So here's another question. So, like when you're researching, what forms of like what sources are you using to research? Are you going online? Are you using the library? I mean, libraries kind of access has been scarce, but what are you using?
for all my works, and I know I've seen most posts, and I've seen resources for writers. I don't. That would be the last place that I usually go to. Um,
Resources for writers?
yeah, like oh, there's links in here and there's stuff. I've seen certain websites that have resources, which is great. It might work
Okay.
for a section of people, but it doesn't work for me because none of the stories that I've written so far are similar to each other that would prompt me to go to a certain website and look for resources there, or maybe open up a certain book.
But
Especially
you've
with this,
searched Google specific, right? Like,
yeah.
so
I
have
mean,
you?
well, whatever makes it easy. Whatever makes it easy. If I have something outside of the internet, I would consult that. I did read a couple of books. I told you so. Those were
Mhm.
actually no, that was on the internet. I read a couple of books as far as and this was in the first stages of the script when we were just talking about this and I was joking about this.
Right,
And so I read the book and I listened to the book too a number of times. It's a really long book too.
right.
And so, I mean, you could say that was like the writing style that I wished to base it upon. Not, I can't say emulate, but base upon. So that's the writing style that I actually did back then. And you said that you like that writing style.
Yeah,
I made
yeah, I
I
do.
made a different analogy. It's like oil is all over my face. I can't get it off my head. So so that was the writing style. And then once the first couple of scenes came to be, now inevitably there are certain things that I have to come up in my head. If it's not on the spot, then okay, so we're dealing with robots. So you have to come to a full stop in here. Now I have to go in places and figure out, okay, what is a robot? What is an android? What is a cyborg?
So that must have been a point of research, right? You have to go and look up or research robots, androids, cyborgs, right?
Right. So right. And to go with that, you get just reading it on paper is not enough. So that comes that other part of research. Now, okay, how have they been depicted previously, and whether I want to be true to those depictions or not. So there's more reading, there's more maybe watching videos, YouTube videos, because it's a visual thing. Now I have to visualize this, and maybe a couple of soundtracks. So I watched a couple of movies like that, and then as I progressed, and all this information in the background, now I came up in certain storylines, and okay, so now I have to maybe read a couple of articles about a certain event that happened on this country or on that country, and then maybe a couple of locations that I have on the story. So
Have you
I had to look them up.
have you used like Wikipedia or newspapers, either of those?
Wikipedia, no, no, I can't say. I mean, Wikipedia is like it's huge. Like anytime you search on something, that there would be a Wikipedia entry on that one.
Right.
I can't say that I go to Wikipedia and search. Like I would open up, if I would use the internet, I would open up a Google browser and just search it there, and whatever results come in there. And I would
Likelihood Wikipedia would be part of the result, right?
right. I'm whatever. If it comes up, it comes up. But I don't go to specific websites. Like I would just do like a big search and go down the list of the results. And if enough results seem to be all one of the same, I would just like, okay, so this is what this topic is, and I would move on. Maybe wait, maybe leave this information, maybe write something down on the script itself, and then move on, and
And
just
with
try to work it in my head.
and with newspapers, so and specifically because I know you write science fiction, do you ever look back at old newspapers to see if there's anything reflective as to what you're writing? If there's anything that's happened, say even, if NASA has posted anything or, in the past, so that
I
you can utilize that information?
as far as that information goes, I do have something like that in the book. I was aware of the event because I've watched documentaries about
Mm.
that specific event, and the rest, I had to come up myself because it's science fiction. But no, if I would go and look to newspapers, old newspapers, that would be because of the feel that the newspaper gives. And when I say that, I mean
The way it reports it?
the way it looks.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
And what were people thinking back in those times when they were still using these things?
Okay. And
That
do you find yourself searching YouTube a lot for information or to see if there's any kind of anything similar to what you're working on, or if you can find any relative information to what you're working on?
sometimes I avoid YouTube.
Really? I search YouTube
Yeah,
quite often.
right. So YouTube is mostly audio visual, right? And I'm an audio
Hmm.
visual bug.
I
So,
know.
most of the links that I would send, they are from YouTube because audio visual.
Hmm.
But research is not only audio visual. Like, okay, so if I'm looking if I was, and I remember I posted this somewhere. That was a video of some indie filmmakers that had made this video of this little android that they were making army drills. He was in the range and he was doing drills, and this was so well made, and it looked amazing. I thought it was real, but it wasn't real. But in that sense, like audio visual, like how do the androids move? What do they sound like? Does it make sense? The sounds that they inserted, maybe they would sound different, and stuff like that. Yeah, I would go and seek YouTube for that, for audio visual. But if I'm looking for information, I would prefer to read it.
But kind of when you really want to get the feel for what you're writing, don't you kind of want both, right? So it's one thing to go and research the actual background or whatever, or even settings that you're looking for, but it's great to get that visual. And for me, I find YouTube kind of has a bit of everything. So if I can't find the visual personally for a Google search, or even in books that I have here, reference books that I have here, I absolutely 100% head to YouTube because they have everything.
They do. I agree. They do. So,
I know
but
that's just
what
me.
the reason why I'm saying sometimes I avoid YouTube, and I know it's shocking.
Hmm.
Sometimes I want to read the articles. So there are certain articles on certain sites on the internet that they're not YouTube doesn't that they're not YouTube that they just they're articles. We're talking research.
Right.
Um,
But I
right.
mean, research is kind of both, right? Like for me anyway, I mean, I want to, because if you're going to put into writing what you're seeing, right?
No, true, but
For me,
I mean, research is not. So this is we could have made this the word of the day, but it's not. But
it's
it's not.
not. It's not.
So, so the question is, what do you consider research? Right?
I think, well, I mean, okay, that's an obvious question. Honestly, anything that you have to go to an outside source, whether it be a person to speak to, look up in online, do a Google search, search YouTube, go to a library, search newspapers, resource into your own experiences, all of that stuff. That's research. It's all research. It's all considered
Well,
research.
I categorize it kind of differently in my head. That is research. What you defined, and it's perfect. But if I want to get a feel for a scene, if I want to get a feel for a character, so we're talking about androids. If I want to get a feel for androids, then I would definitely go on YouTube to get that audio visual feel, and then I would have to describe it. But if I'm
But
if
if
I'm
you're looking for the
researching,
mechanics of how it works, then you have to go to an article. I get it.
that would be right. So yeah, that would be different. And also, if we're talking about how are we going to write this piece, once I decide how am I going to write this piece, then that's another thing.
So that is another thing. That's the other thing I was going to ask. When you do research, are you researching things like punctuation? Are you researching
No.
things like how to create better backstories? Are you
No.
researching how to write better sex scenes?
No. No,
Are
I
you?
don't.
Well,
I don't think I've ever
definitely
researched that.
researched that. Are you researching things like how to create tension in a story?
Why? Why would I need that?
Well, you know what? No author has all the answers, so I'm just asking.
You are right. But see, the thing is that if I am writing a story and I have a certain story in my head, right? And you know how I came up with the logical conclusion of Captive Mind. I came up little scene by scene, and then it progressed to chapter by chapter. And then I started going, and then I threw out this crazy idea at you, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how it goes." And then, as it moved, and as I provided you with more backstory,
yeah, it progressed.
It started to get. I'm sorry. So what I'm trying to say is that I do have a story in my head. I understand that maybe certain scenes need a little more crafting than the rest, but
And
I mean,
every author, don't you think they could use to, tone, let's say, it's like doing exercise for the brain, for the
right? So
writer.
I do this one thing, because this goes more into writing, because there's so much into writing. There's no one author is going to
Right.
say, okay, I did
It's kind of
a
research.
1 hour interview, and that's it, that's all my writing. There's more into writing. So if you want to build tension, what I do, well, what I do with most scenes is that you have to leapfrog information. And what I mean by leapfrog information, you have to project your information subtly in the previous scenes. So when you come back in the middle of the book, it will ring familiar, but you will not recall it in your face. So if you're starting a mystery at the beginning of the book, having the character say, this is a mystery, I think it's a bad idea. So you introduce something strange, and then something familiar in the middle, in the first scene, and then something familiar but strange a little later on, and then the sudden realization. But for the character would be a sudden realization, but the reader, you already read all the signs because they were projected further up. So I do have my own methods of how to insert certain dynamics of the scenes, and I believe that goes into the voice of like how I write.
But then, okay, so excluding you, because you seem to have your way of doing it, but some writers would research these things.
No, and that's
they would
fine.
Research how to use punctuation properly, or how to create backstories, even not just better backstories, but backstories in general. And I know at one point I did research, truthfully, how to write better sex scenes. And not that I ever looked up creating tension in a story, but I know that it seems plausible. It seems like something that an author would look up, right? Especially someone that's new.
You are right. You are right. I did look up. You are right. And I don't know everything, and there's no way that I know everything. I did look up narration devices for the Morning Star.
Right.
I did, although I came up with mine. I did look them up, and there's several narration
what options
devices.
were out there, right? And then you can pick and choose from that.
For short story collections or anthologies. And I picked up one. It might not have been the easiest one, but it came easy. And I had, as soon as I already had a general idea of what I was going to do, but I wasn't exactly sure where I was going. And yes, I did research on that one. I had those tabs open for, I believe till the end of the book. Even after, I still had those tabs
Okay.
open. So yeah, no,
really
you are
research,
absolutely right. You're
yes.
absolutely right. Yeah.
So really research could be just about anything. And I mean, as an author, we research just about everything, right? I mean, from the start to the finish of the book.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, you know, that kind of information, I want it better. I want it. I think I register it better when I read it, not when I hear it.
I have to agree. I absolutely agree. But to be
So
honest with you,
YouTube won't help me in that aspect.
I use both. I know I use both. So
Right.
I'm looking for things, articles, definitely. I'm looking for, I do a Google search. I do a generalized Google search, and then of course I hone in from there. If I had more access to a library, of course our libraries have all been closed, and I think they're finally open, but I'm not sure. So I would love to go sit into a library again. But anyway, I have some, reference books here at the house. So I would use those. I have searched newspapers online, more for locations and settings, towns and stuff like that, to get a general feel of, places there. And Wikipedia I find it extremely helpful. I don't know, maybe that's just me, because I think it has links within itself too, right?
Right. I don't think it's that. I think I might have an answer to this. Because I write science fiction and it's not based on Earth. Locations on Earth are kind of, I use maybe one or two and the rest is fictionalized, right? So the rest of the story is in other planets. So I don't, I think, Wikipedia comes more handy when you're doing research for people and events that happen on Earth, or if you're going back in history, historical fiction, Wikipedia would be a gold mine because it's all there. You are basing it on history, and that's your research right there.
Well, see, I've been doing fantasy novel, and witchcraft is in it, so, and it feeds me page to page to page to page, but with all the links, right?
So for the story 𝐿𝐸, I researched the first occurrence, the first documented occurrence of a possessed person, and I came across this old website that had a mention of this, and I believe those links, they came back from the fine print of Wikipedia references.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I was reading. I was reading the references, and it's an old. It's an old habit that I got from college.
It is actually really helpful. I mean, not every time, but
right.
Yeah, but it has some really helpful stuff in it. Okay, so I have another question before we, wrap up the whole research thing. But so when you do your research, and are you actually inserting it directly into the story as you get the research, or are you putting it? Where are you storing it? Are you putting it down, just jotting it down on a piece of paper? Are you putting it in a separate file? Are you saving it on a flash drive? Because I know you're a flash drive junkie.
I need external physical. Yeah.
Are you putting it on? I jot everything down on. I have Post-its everywhere. I have to take a picture of my wall beside my desk. It'll make you vomit.
I used to do that. I had a folder full of saved bookmarks and articles and so on. But I found that whenever I do that, I just tend to hoard information, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to put them here so I can go and reference them later.
I do, though. I really do.
And later on, well, right. But for me, I never went back to the folder. I kept on going back to the internet.
Okay, so I don't have a folder.
Ultimately,
they stare at me. I'm looking at them right now. They're right beside me, and they're lined across. They're stuck on the bottom of my computer screen. They surround me. I have no choice but to utilize them. When I get stuck, I look. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I'm going back to that.
So basically what I would do is, if I am stuck on a specific scene and I need to do research, I would do the research right there and then, jot a couple of things down, and then I'll just go on with it.
So you're inserting it right away?
Yeah. I think that's the best. I think that's the best. It might not be, as you say, fine-tuned right away.
Yeah, but the general idea is there.
But it's there. Yeah, but the general idea is there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm curious. I don't know how many people would do that. I know because typically I do my research without the story open. So I don't have the story open on, on my desktop. It's closed. And so I jot down all the information that I feel I need, and then I'll put it together to put into the story, to insert it after.
I think this goes back to the way I write, because I don't write linearly. Even though I wrote the logical conclusion linearly, I don't, like, my personal edits are not linear. I just, sometimes I open up the script and I just like scroll midway and I start editing my personal edits in the middle. What I have noticed, and writing papers in college and all that stuff, it was the first thing that you do when you open a document. You open a document, and now Microsoft Word has a like find tab that says pick up where you left.
Right.
It's kind of helpful because
work,
right, but it opens it up on top, and what I do is I start reading the first chapter back to back to back to back, and it's like, okay, well, you know what, I've done this for a couple of months now. It's burned to the back of my eyes. I can't see any more mistakes in here. I need to go back down. Sometimes, I would just focus on the ending. Remember how I said that I keep the story? Like, if I have a story, if I'm writing about a story every day, it will stay in my head.
Right.
So if I open up the script, I would go directly to the end scene and start adjusting and editing the end scene fresh as I am, and then you start writing for a number of hours, start to get tired.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everything, unless you have something to add about research.
No, I don't. I don't have anything. If the listeners have any questions or suggestions, maybe there's something that we did mention.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be great to leave a comment on the comment section below. Tell us if what they are doing. If they have any better advice, it would be great for us to know, and for other listeners too.
Yeah, for sure. Now, for the big one, what's the word of the day, Dorian? What have you chosen?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the root of this word. It's a word that I'm using on my title, my next book's title, and the word is logic.
Logic. So the word of the day, chosen by Dorian Keys, logic. So that is going to be the what is required in the email sent to giveaways at 𝐂𝐨𝐸edspublishing.com, along with sharing this podcast and subscribing to our YouTube channel, in order to win the copy of the book and the t-shirt. Now let's discuss logic.
Yes, let's discuss logic. So
how common is logic?
I believe this goes back to like common sense. I think, sometimes we call common sense logic, right?
Right.
Some, like, common sense, they say it's not so common.
Yeah, no.
But I believe there's something more to it as well. See, I'm not a plumber. I try to fix plumbing issues, but I am not a plumber. So if I need something done professionally to plumbing, I would open up my phone and call a plumber who does this for a living, who knows exactly how to deal with the specific issue. And I'm just taking plumber, like, trivially. A person that has done this, to this person, right, it would be logical for him to say, hey, you should use this tape in here, or, these screws don't go here, they go there. You should tighten this up a little more, or you should do certain things that would be logical to him.
Or what are you doing using this tape to,
right.
instead of having soldered this, right?
Right, yeah. You don't use duct tape in here, or electrical tape in plumbing, right? That's why it's called electrical tape. You don't use it in plumbing. You use it in electrical. Right, so this stuff would be common sense.
Logical move.
Right. So you did use the word. Like, it's logical to a person that does this repeatedly or has a formal education. I would even go as far to say, to give off advice about or work on a specific task. Right. That's to that person, whatever he's doing is logical.
Okay. All right. I could definitely grasp that. I didn't think logical was, or logic, my apologies, because we're going with the logic being the root of it. I didn't think logic was going to be that easy to move with, but you pulled it off.
So logical is an adjective, and Merriam-Webster
Mm-hmm.
defines it as capable of reasoning or of using reason in an orderly, cogent fashion. I don't know if I said that word correctly. So there's another concept in there, reason, and I think
Okay.
that goes back to common sense.
Right.
Which common sense? I mean, correct. Common sense is not so common. There's many things that I don't know that I call professionals to deal with, and there's many things that I know, and others call me to deal with. Right. So what's logical to me, what's common sense to me, is not common sense to anybody. And in that sense, unity creates strength, right? Let's just bring all our heads together, all our common senses together to fix something. It's only logical, right? Okay, that's all we had for today. The word for today is logic, and I hope that today's podcast was a little informative. If you have any more suggestions, we're more than welcome. We'll read all the suggestions down at the description, at the comment section below.
And don't forget to send in or share and subscribe and send in your email with the word of the day. What's the word of the day again, Dorian?
Logic.
Logic. Perfect. In order to get your copy of Contracted to Mr. Collins and your Cozy Reads t-shirt. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for joining me today, Dorian.
Thanks for having me, SJ.
Had a great time.
Me too.
Bye.
Well, that's our show, folks.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. And be sure to visit 𝐂ZYReadsPublishing.com to discover the next best-selling author.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.